Yo, we have Jake KARLS on the podcast today, the chief rainmaker of Mid Day Squares. We talked about his authentic storytelling abilities, the highs and lows of Mid Day Squares, and much, much more. Hope you guys love this conversation just as much as I did. Let's go. This week's episode is brought to you by Swevin, a co-working space in the heart of Hoboken with skyline views. We appreciate you, Swevin, for this awesome, sick podcast studio. Now, let's get into the podcast.
You know where you are!
This is the Outliers Podcast. Let's go! Cheers, brother. Thank you, my guy. Appreciate you calling through, baby.
Dude, honestly, I was like, I was like, I got to figure a way to get to Jersey because I was like, I always go to New York. I fly to LaGuardia. I'm like, why don't I fly to Newark?
Yes.
And then I come on the way back as I'm going to New York. And I was like, and then when we spoke about it, I'm like, okay, let's do it. This was the easiest week. And I was like, okay. And it was a shitty flight, but it's part of it.
Was turbulence?
You know what it is? It's just the tight planes. It's those small planes. And the person the person in front of me,
I actually saw your brother-in-law post that. That's tiny-ass plane.
No, he flew on that. I had something this morning. I couldn't go with him. So he's already in New York. But I had to take Air Canada. But the person in front of me was, I guess, just this chair was either broken and he slammed back, bro. It was like this much to my knees. I was dying the whole thing, and I couldn't push him up. I couldn't. I don't know. I'm strong enough muscles, But so I dealt with that. But it was. I fly every week, so I'm just like fed up of flying. I think.
I bet, dude.
But
I feel like sometimes in those planes, it's almost a motivational factor because you're like, yo, I am going to be flying first class private for the rest of my life.
That's my goal.
That's right. It's like a motivational factor.
Dude, if we could do that in the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years, is fly on, we want to call it MDS Aviations, just have it. And anyone could use it on our team. Anyone. It doesn't make a difference. Friends, I don't give a shit. At least under the corporate, and they could just do it. It would change our lives. Because even if we go to New York for an hour, it's the customs, the security, the Ubers. It's
like
just
efficiencies.
It's efficiencies. And Sam Walton, one of my favorite retailers, Walmart, he even though he couldn't afford it, he bought a plane, like a small propeller plane, and he, instead of driving to every store at the beginning, he flew. He said it changed his life. Someone flew him. But like at the end of the day, he said just the relaxation of it, crazy. Because when you're all stressed and tight and all that shit, sweating and all that jazz, it changes your energy, right? Your energy level gets a little bit sucked. And then if you go on a dinner, you go on an event, you have to perform, you can't perform as well. So my wife, I love her. Her company that she works for has a nice jet, and they go to New York every week, and she flies in a jet, and she is on luxury. She parks her car at the fucking thing
dude.
At 6 a.m. They wash the car. She lands. It's 1 minute off the plane. Get out, and I'm just like, that's a dream.
And that's when you don't want to leave that company, right?
Yeah. That's why
it's another massive perk.
Yeah, it's a massive perk. One day we'll have one. That's a goal. But anyways, this is really good.
Hell yeah, man. Well, Jake, welcome to the Outliers Menu Podcast.
I love it. I like your energy.
Shit, bro.
I meet a lot of people, and I always say, when you sit down with a conversation, I meet people on social media and all that stuff, you don't really get to know them. But when you sit one-on-one for like an hour or so, you really get to know somebody. And that's why I love doing these things. I don't care who it is. I don't care what industry, what thing. I love sitting down with people in an intimate setting because I find that that's where you really get to know somebody in life. And the more people you have in your corner and the more people you have that intimacy with, I guess life becomes better generally. So you're my Jersey friend now. You're my Hoboken.
Hoboken, baby.
It's cool. It's hot here.
It is hot, baby.
Sexy.
Figuratively and literally hot, literally right now.
I always thought New Jersey was like, I don't know, like it's malls and like Jersey Shore.
Yeah, bro.
Rightfully so. This gorgeous Hoboken, which is trendy.
It is, dude. It's like the Brooklyn of Jersey, and it's like,
exactly.
And and it's funny you say that because it's true that Jersey always is like.
Gets that rep.
We have the rep, and we have that's why we have this natural grit about us.
Yeah, you guys have
because there's beauty here. It's a garden state, man. Yeah. There's a real beauty in Jersey.
And taxes are a little lower, I think.
A little bit. It's honestly fucking expensive. It's a liberal state, bro. It's Jersey, New York, Cali. The taxes you got to pay for it to live here, and then on top of that, with Jersey, it's like. It's like even the New York Giants, the Jets, like all these teams,
they're
actually in fucking Jersey, bro.
Are they?
So we even get the rep that we deserve.
They got to get more respect.
We already got no respect. That's why we're on the map and we're just continuing.
The problem is you live next to a city that gets all the attention.
All the attention.
And
Jersey, literally across the river.
Yeah, you're across the river, and you guys get as they say, no ass.
No ass, but we got the beach, baby.
Yeah, you guys got
a lot of ass
and,
there.
And you guys got like a little bit of a personality to you.
Yeah,
so.
there's definitely some more aggressiveness.
Yeah, you guys are a little aggressive here. But I love it.
And on your side of things, man, I saw that you posted on Instagram story that you're here and you're talking to so many different people.
Yeah.
Your natural ability to storytell. I've always been infatuated with Mid Day Squares. It's impossible not to be enamored by your storytelling abilities. When did you start that, and was that a focus point from the rip?
Yeah, so storytelling is the future of all marketing, and it's not a new thing, right? Storytelling is how we as humans have communicated forever. Think about it. Like, we hunted and gathered as a society thousands of years ago, and we'd sit by a fire and talk to our fellow villagers, and communicate through stories, and that connected us. So knowing that it's been a part of our evolution, why are we as businesses and humans just not telling stories? Or why are we telling stories that are so bad? Why don't we start to get good at storytelling, build the muscle of how do you emotionally connect, and how do you persuade and influence and build relationships with. So when we started Mid Day Squares, it's my sister, my brother-in-law, and I. So we're family, but we didn't go into business because we're family. We went because we complement each other in different skills. I said to them, I said, guys, if we want to win in chocolate, which is such a big industry, but it's dominated by typically 5-10 big businesses, great businesses, but huge. And I said, if we want to win, we're going to have to set ourselves apart, not just from a product standpoint, from a product market fit standpoint, but from a emotionality standpoint. You know, I would look at my wife, at the time my girlfriend, in the stores, and she'd go to like a Sephora, and she would see these brands and she'd be fired up about them. Like, she'd be like, pick it up and be like, oh my God, do you see this? I love this company. And I'd hear these emotions, her talking about these businesses, and I was like, what do you love about them? And at the time she'd be like, oh, well, their brand's so cool and the product's good. And she kept on hearing that. And then we'd go to the grocery store and I wouldn't hear the same thing. I'd just be like, oh yeah, I'm buying this because of price and function, rather than an emotional connection. So I said to my partners, what if we used what Hollywood has done for 100 years, tell stories via media, and that way we could sell people on this idea of, you get to know us through our storytelling. That sets our product apart from the 40,000 other products. And that way, when you go to the grocery store, it's no longer, I'm looking at commodities and prices. It's like, no, I love that brand. I know them. I'm friends with them. I want to be I'm part of their journey. And I just told my partners, let's film everything. Just show the fucking good, the bad, the ugly of how we build Mid Day Squares. I did it in a previous business and it worked. And I realized, if we're the only one doing it in our space, it will automatically create a fire. And that fire will create attention, and it's harder than ever to grab attention. So we can get that and skip the spending hundreds of millions of dollars on billboards, radio, TV ads, all that stuff where we can't afford. So that's what we did. It's ingrained in me because I've been doing it for a long time, but I convinced my partners who really were like skeptical about it because they're introverts, and I convinced them to get on camera, and that's all it was. It was humanize the story. That way we could sell these bars but not talk about the bars. And that was the strategy, and we do it every day, and it's a muscle. You get better when you still try more and more and more and more, and it's like biceps. When you do your biceps, 25-pound weights for a week, and then you go to 30, and then you go to 45 in 2 months, you're getting stronger. So it's the same concept, but tell your story and not be afraid of the backlash, or not be afraid of someone judging you and making fun of you, because they're going to. There's a lot of bullshit noise out there when you start a business, when you're doing something that's against the grain, and those people are telling good stories, by the way. And famous or not famous people, infamous and unpopular leaders or not, they're all storytellers, and that's where people either have that emotion of hate or love for them. And I always give Elon Musk as an example. People don't like this guy. I like him. I think that he's built multiple companies that are changing the world, but forget about that. He's told a story himself, unapologetically, good or bad, whatever he says is your opinion to take on it, but he tells a story. And Tesla originally didn't have to market and spend on marketing because he was the mouth. He was telling that story every day, garnering hundreds of millions of views. It's the same thing. So I believe tremendously in storytelling, and I believe everyone can get good at it. You just got to build that muscle and be willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations.
No, it's beautiful, man. And I feel like your energy and your electricity between you and your family members translates so well through the camera. And I agree with you, because you always hear marketing in regards to storytelling, but I feel like it's almost like a vague thing, right? So to you, it seems so easy now because you guys have a muscle. It's built. Like, you guys are like a muscling storytelling machine at this point. What is your approach to the storytelling? Is there do you have it pre-planned within your team? Like, each week, this is what we're going to focus on. Do you have it batched up, or what's your approach on the storytelling?
So it used to be honestly, each week we plan stuff, and then basically what happened was we always said to our team, if we can capture the drama that happens as we build the business, so we're in New York City right now or whatever, we're in Jersey right now, but we have a whole day tomorrow. Can we capture something interesting from there? So we already know that we're there. What's the story that can come out of that? That would be the question. And then our editor or our videographer will tell us what to film. So he'll be like, hey, you're going to present a TD Securities investment, your road to 100 million presentation. Film the entrance, film the momentum, film the crowd's energy, the Q&A, so we formulate a story. But there's also serendipity of just nothing. Like, it's like whatever happens, just put it up. And that's what humanizes as much as possible. Like, my partner was going on, he flew on that little jet today or whatever, that propeller plane. Yeah. That was random. He just put that up, and like people loved it. They engaged it. They're like, oh, this is so cool. And then they make something of MDS and aviations and all that stuff. But campaigns are always pre-planned for months, but everything else is just as we flow, and we need things to happen to create the stories. Yeah. Because when you start faking things and you start acting inauthentic, I know authenticity is a buzzword, but once you start doing that, people feel that energy, and it starts to become a little bit cringe and a little bit uncomfortable, which a lot of businesses unfortunately do. So what we'll do is we'll just not share something, and we'll wait till we have something. And we used to be on a schedule every day, post a video. Now it's like whatever happens. Let's give value. Let's make sure we like the content, number one. Let's make sure, number two, that it evokes an emotion in the consumer that watches it. Good or bad, angry, sad, inspiring, aspirational, whatever it is, it has to do one of those things. And it's changed our strategy. We're still short-staffed. We'd like to have an entire media team internally because still sometimes I have to take my own content and do that stuff, and it's a lot of work. You're running a business, you're trying to do these things, then you have to remember to pull out your phone, and it changes the dynamic of some conversations. If you're in a meeting with an investor and you're like, oh wait, hold on, can I film something? It might get really uncomfortable. But when you have a videographer with you, following you, it's almost like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And people start to get really amazed by it, right? It seems like celebrity or Hollywood style, but it's not. It's just everyone should be able to capture content. We live in a world that's an attention economy. It's not what it was 10 years ago where, we didn't have social media. Today, people are glued to their phones trying to educate, entertain, or connect with people. So give them that. And I think brands still forget today to do it. They're still focused on, what's the product benefit of the water that we're drinking? Is it that it's pH level this? Yes, that's great and all, but that's not enough today. You need that plus emotionality, and the only way to do it is to capture and create something that's meaningful.
Do you ever think about when you're capturing a certain piece of content, you're like, I don't want to post this yet because we're working on something, right? Like, I don't want our competitors to know what I'm working on. Because I feel like that's also a difficult component. You're always like shooting the content. You're like, all right, we can't post this yet because we don't want to be too vulnerable right now because we're like trying to figure out our shit. Yep. Like, do you have things batched? Like, do you have content that you're shooting right now and waiting to storytell in a month from now?
Only like things that are like legal, like whether it's like a recall that we won over or like a legal battle that is settled finally. Like, that's the only stuff that gets shown. Otherwise, competitor stuff, we used to care a lot. Now we don't care, and we committed to a strategy. It's build out loud. We know what our competitors are doing. We're aware, but we're not focused on it. And at the end of the day, even if we share our gross margin, we share our revenue numbers, we don't care at the end of the day. What we do care about is sharing how we make the midday squares, so like the way we manufacture it, and then suppliers information, and then the machinery we use. That's it. Otherwise, everything's on the table, and it could be shown. And sometimes our investors will say to us, "You think it's a little too much?" And we'll be like, yeah, but that's why you love us. Like, we push it a little bit more and more and more, and that creates that attention from the consumer where they focused. And today's world is all about getting that attention, because whoever can get the most attention usually sells the most products. That's going to be the going method in terms of marketing, I believe, for the next 20, 30 years, maybe even 100.
Do you think because I agree with you, the attention is the currency. You said it. You said it. You
can't buy it. You can't buy it.
And even look at these other bigger brands, right? Like now, like Mr. Beast is hitting the market. You have Prime.
I just saw that
with Logan Paul. You have W with Jake Paul. Like, if you love them or hate them, they're going to be making a huge impact on the bathroom space, right? With Jake Paul, with W.
I saw that.
I talk about it all the time with my team because I'm like, he's like going to shake up Axe and Right Guard and all these brands.
He has attention.
Yes,
he has a community, and as much as attention is the new currency, community is the mandatory prereq to building a successful business. Because without a community, you don't, like your diehard fans or whatever, people will switch and interchange products very quickly, depending on the price, economy, what all these things are function. But when you have a community, they stay loyal, and they're your foundation. They're actually what separates you from this product. Let's say this product and this product look the same. They're the exact same, different labeling. That's all it is. the fans will switch back and forth depending on certain benefits and features. But if this company makes you feel a certain way, they're going to keep you from going to this one because you feel deeply about this brand. And that's all a community is. And if you are building a business today or you have a legacy business, focus on what your community wants. Give them something that's meaningful so that they stay with you. And it will give your company a premium value, whether you're selling it, whether you're IPOing it, whatever you're doing with it. And I think that people forget that community is valuable, and you cannot buy it. You can't buy someone's trust. You can't buy relatability. It's impossible. You have to earn it. You have to actually deserve it. And I think that like Jake Paul and Logan Paul and even Mr. Beast, they've built communities, very successful communities around them and their content and all that stuff. And now look, they launch a product, it flies. That being said, I think what's critical for their products is to keep their community coming back for more, they still need a good product. So we'll know what happens with after the jump, if it goes back down or not, simply based on a good product. Because you need a good product today, but you also need a good story. You used to just need you could win with just marketing, or you could win with just a good product. Today you need both.
And it's true, man. When you are referring to community, what does community mean to you? Because that's another buzzword, right? But it means so much. What does community mean to you, and how do you build a community?
I think to me, community is just like people that relate to something and are part of something. And how do you build one? I think being authentically yourself, and your business having some sort of value that is true to them, like whatever the business is. I think we'll build it. It will have people gravitate towards something, whatever you are offering. So for Mid Day Squares, one thing that we do is we're loud, we're bold, we're crazy, and people like that boldness, and they gravitate towards it. And I think for me personally, I'm very vulnerable on LinkedIn and all this stuff, and people are gravitating towards that community. So I think that if you're going to build something, it's not going to be just based on product. So that's great. You have a great food product, a great beverage product, or a great consumer product. That's awesome. But you need to build something more. You need to make people feel something or feel part of something. That's how community will develop. And the way to start doing it quickly is share your story openly. Be authentically yourself. You don't have to show therapy sessions like Mid Day Squares does. That's our thing. That's what we show. We're true to that. But find what's true to you. If you're in sports and you like performance, talk about that. And community will naturally build around it. But you cannot buy community, because at the end of the day, community stays because it's relatable to them and they trust it. The moment they stop, that community's gone.
No, it's beautiful, man. Well said, dude. I feel like you mentioned, vulnerability as well. And I think that's probably the hardest part of any growth, right? Of leading the charge and as being a leader and creating your own company and shooting content and all of that. I feel like the biggest challenge too when it comes to shooting content, and for me personally, would be the vulnerability side of things. Because I think what I'm most vulnerable about, not even about getting backlash on me, but am I strengthening the brand or am I weakening the brand? Is putting face in front of the brand. Do you ever think about that sometimes?
Yeah, 100%.
Because Mid Day Squares is so much.
Three of us.
Built on you three. And you ever think about that side of things?
For sure. And I think it's a very important question. So humanizing a brand, it gives you a jump start for sure. People will want to be around it. They're either going to like you or dislike you. And the ones that like you will do a lot for you. The ones that dislike you will stay away from you, which is fine too. But I think over time, as you scale a business into multiple countries, multiple retailers, multiple different, product lines or whatever it is, the brand has to represent something. And, for us, as we build Mid Day Squares, we're going to continue to be influencers and champions of the brand and be part of the story. But the story is going to represent something more than Jake, Nick, and Leslie. And for us, one thing that we want Mid Day Squares to stand for and our community is that we are just bold, we're crazy, and we're wild. And that's what the brand represents. It's a food company that's doing it not like a food company. It's basically unapologetic and anti-bureaucratic, in my opinion. And that's what we want to represent. And I think that that's something that, and by the way, I like bureaucracy for certain things, manufacturing, you need systems and all that stuff. Yeah. But I mean the idea of fighting, being different.
Being an entrepreneur, starting from small, starting from scratch. But no, we could do this.
You can. Why not?
Why not? We could take them. They're not trying to burn down Hershey. You're just I want a piece of it.
Yeah.
I want a piece of what you guys are building.
And we respect what they build.
We're trying to build something special.
Exactly.
There's enough competition for everyone.
There's enough.
We want to get in there.
And I think that that's what it is. It's like people think you can only build businesses and there's one way to do it.
Yes.
I think that what we're trying to show is that there's many ways to do it, and we're doing it our way. We're building our own path. That being said, we take from other paths as well. And Hershey's an unbelievable business. 40+ billion. I think it's way bigger than that. But at the end of the day, Hershey Milton, when he started, he built something from scratch. It was zero at one point. And now they've become a massive organization. They supply a lot of jobs. They've done a lot of good for some of the world and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they've also lost track a little bit about their values and their authenticity. And you feel it too, you know, like people buy less of their products as they used to necessarily. And for us, it's not that we're trying to burn them down. We want them to keep winning, to be honest with you. It's that we're just another company that's another chocolate that's starting and believes we can get big. We believe we can get to a size that's quite meaningful. And I think that we could do it by being our way. And if people are trying to stop us, they're trying to stop us. But at the end of the day, we're staying true to who we are. And I think that that's what we represent. And people like that. I think they like this idea of David versus Goliath. But we're not fighting them. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're trailblazers, man.
Exactly.
You're trying to create your own heartbeat.
And we
you're
respect
trying to cut
all
through
those
the noise.
brands. Exactly.
You're trying to cut through the noise. You're trying to be your own artist here. That's all it is.
And I think too many people want you to fit into a box, and we just don't want to. And that should be okay, right? And, you know, the three of us didn't do so well in school. And, you know, everyone told us basically that we would fail and we wouldn't be able to do what we want. And then in the end, we just bulldoze through the noise. It's bullshit noise. If you have conviction, you believe in yourself, you know how to work hard, and you truly have that unconditional belief, I think you could achieve anything. The human mind is so powerful, and you don't necessarily need a past job or a past degree in something to achieve something. The internet has opened up so much education and knowledge to anybody that has internet. You know, hopefully the whole world will soon have internet. But the idea is it's up to you and your willpower, your willingness to withstand an immense amount of pressure, and then the idea that you can do it. And I know it sounds cheesy, but at the end of the day, that's the truth. Like, you know, when we started Mid Day Squares, everyone said, like, people that loved us, that care about us deeply, they didn't have bad intentions, but they said, like, really, does the world need another chocolate bar? Do you guys really think you could win? And they really didn't believe it was possible. Like, they were just like, guys, maybe you should go get a job and, like, do these things. And they weren't trying to hurt us. They were just trying to say, like, yes, they're protecting. And I heard that noise, and it was screwing my mind a little bit. But at the end of the day, I was like, the three of us created a bubble, and we're like, okay, we really believe we can do this. And we created this delusional bubble that it was possible. And that delusion drove us all the way. That naiveness drove us all the way forward. And we blocked out all the noise. We still cared and loved the people that mattered to us. But at the end of the day, when you're starting something, everyone's going to tell you no. Everyone's going to tell you there's a better idea, or maybe you should do something else. It can't work. It's impossible. Someone's done it before. If you take that noise and listen to it, you're going to fail. It's guaranteed. But if you truly are delusional and believe in yourself, you're giving yourself at least a chance. And the chances are minimal, but a small chance of winning. And I think that that's my best lesson I've learned in the decade I've tried entrepreneurship and failed in 2 businesses and, you know, hopefully winning in this one, is you have to have this delusional self-belief, and they'll give you this small chance. And there's a very small chance of winning, but if you do and you stay true to it, you're at least on the right path to get there.
That's beautiful, man. I think also on top of that, it's like, at the end of the day, to me, I feel like maybe I look at failing and losses or mistakes differently. I think failing is only when you give up or when you quit.
Yep.
Right? At the end of the day, there's so many monumental mistakes you can be making that, yeah, to someone else, losing X amount of money is a failure.
Yep.
But if you learn from that,
it's a win.
It's a win.
It's on average decisions equals on average outcomes. So exactly. Why you're good or bad. Yeah. It's good if your perspective is that you want to learn from it.
Yes.
Now that I believe people have to go through pain to receive that.
Big
you
time.
know, I used to think fail an exam, end of the world. Mm-hmm. I would cry. I would call my mom. I'd be like, Ma, like, I did shit. She'd be like, it's all good. Like, don't worry. I would redo classes and then I would fail it again. And I just felt like a loser. I honestly felt like I was dumb. And when I learned later on in life of trying businesses and actually trying to go against the grain, I started to feel that these losses or these failures, as some people would call them, is actually a privilege. It's actually amazing to feel those feelings, because when you feel them, you have a choice in those moments that you either give up, like you said, or you take and you look at a different angle, or you try something else. Next thing you know, you win more. Yeah. So when you lose, it's always a W. And that's where I realized you might as well go out there and make on-average decisions every single day of your life, because it doesn't matter if you lose it. If your perspective's strong enough, like you said, then it's always a win. And at the end of the day, the only thing that stops you is the moment you just stop the game and you say, I'm done.
Yes.
That's what I would deem as...
Everyone makes mistakes, only idiots repeat them.
Yeah. You're not going to hit the nail again.
Yeah. Just don't
do that. You're a moron.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what people do. It's like, you know, it didn't work this way, and like even us.
Pivot. Yeah.
We had a great example. Like our manufacturing, one of the processes we took wasn't working, and we tried twice actually. And now my partner said to me, he's like, I have a new path, and this is how we're hitting it on the head. Because if I hit it at the same thing, I would be a fucking idiot. And I said, yeah, because at the end of the day, that's insanity. That's what that quote is. It's insanity to do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome and as a result.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
No, so you got to be bold enough to change. But I think people that are entrepreneurs or creators or artists are creating their own paths, and there's no better. If you're an entrepreneur or you're working in a career, there's no one that's better than not. But what I could tell you is, if you are going against the grain and doing something that is a high risk, I think that you have an ability to withstand a lot of pressure and pain. And that skill set could be applied to everything in your life, personally, your relationships. And that's what I'm grateful for. What I went to this school of entrepreneurship for the last 10 years is learning that kind of stuff, is learning like life lessons that are truly valuable and that I've seen come to value in my other life with my wife and friends, and just hard conversations, like things I would never have done, I would have always avoided, I'm actually doing now. And I realized that that's through the pain I've gone through and all the adversities. You have to learn. If you're not, you're just going to go, you're never going to move. You're just going to stay in the same place or go backwards. And that's just not the right answer.
And I think that you said it before in regards to, like, I know this sounds cheesy, but this is what we have to do in regards to like growing and being an entrepreneur. And the reason why there's a lot of cliche sayings out there is because a lot of them are fucking true, dude.
They are.
Like as an entrepreneur, it's like perseverance. If you believe in yourself, you could do it. And it sounds cliche, but there's a reason why all these high-level outliers are doing it, and it works.
But people don't like it because they're not doing it.
Yes.
That's the problem. So when I say something like that, like have delusional self-belief and you'll give yourself at least a chance, they're like, well, that sounds so like fake and like so like happy-go-lucky in quotations, but it's not. And when you really believe and you're going through those motions, you think you could do it, and you'll do anything in your human power to likely make that happen. And I think you're right. These sayings that the people that say that they're cheesy and all this stuff is typically people that aren't doing it and rejecting it. And rejecting it. And I think that I understand. I've been in that scenario. I made fun of those people. I was one of those guys that when someone would say that to me, I'd be like, he or she is talking stupid. That's impossible. And I was in that like box of prison, I call it, until I realized that like when you step out and you just release the bricks and you actually start to believe in yourself and do you and not what everyone else wants you to do, that's what real freedom is. And I believe I'm living in freedom to a certain extent, and I'm grateful for it. It's a privilege to be going through this journey, even though it's really fucking hard. It's really painful. I've cried myself to sleep multiple times. I see therapy every week. I've been depressed. I've had burnout. I've had all these things. I'm lucky that I've gone through it, and I'm grateful for it. And I am, because at the end of the day, I just feel like I see something. I see it differently. I see that anything actually is possible. And I understand how we went to the Mars. I understand we went to the moon. I understand how us as a world went to the moon and was able to do it, because everything is possible. It might take a very long time. It might take a lot of pain and a lot of work, but it eventually gets there. Somebody's crazy enough to continue to go and continue to withstand that pain. And I hope we can do that with the chocolate industry. That's really what we're trying to do. And we've had tremendous pain. And just a lot of no's, but I can guarantee you one thing is we've been right more than we are wrong, and if that stays, then hopefully we'll get to the top.
In regards to challenges, at one point you've shared on social media that you were close to going bankrupt, right?
Yep.
How did you overcome that mentally? And how did you overcome that as a business?
Yeah, so I think there's been multiple occasions when we were close to financial zero, let's call it, where there was no dollars in the bank account. And we've just went on offense, and every one of those times we pure went offense, meaning we did something bold that was actually different. So, for example, during COVID, when March 2020 came, we were on fire prior to that, and I'll never forget. We were just, our team was amped. We were getting into new retailers. The machines were working in our manufacturing plant. It was so exciting, and or we were getting the machines working. I can't remember exactly. There was momentum, and then COVID hit, and 70% of our sales dropped immediately, and it's sustained 77. It's a big loss, right? And we had a team of 26 people at the time, I think. And we didn't want to fire anyone. We really didn't. And in Canada, they had like really strict lockdowns. So like everything was shut. And I'll never forget, we were going to run out of money if we didn't pick up our sales. And long story short, what I did was, instead of sulking and being angry about what the rules were or whatever was going on, I actually knocked on the hospital doors that was really busy at the time, obviously. And I said, how can we just make product for you guys so we keep my team employed? And we just give them to you guys, donate it to the security, the nurses, the doctors, whatever, the administration, because they were working 24/7, right? So they're like, okay, that's great. That's amazing. So I got the team to work. We kept them going. And then eventually these hospitals were like, don't give them to them for free. Let's buy them at cost. So that way we're staying affordable in what we're doing, to make sure that we're not paying premiums, but we're keeping your team employed. So that offensive move created a lot of momentum. It got our team fired up. We started continue to produce product. And then we went full offense to the point where we were just going sales, and going crazy. And we had that energy, and we raised money at the time, and then we even launched a new flavor. So it was like one of those things where the pendulum just switched. And it was the team's momentum that shifted, and the energy, the mindset, everything, whether it was real or not, in terms of what was going on in our organization, whether it was actually successful, what you're doing or not, what was happening was everyone felt it. They were like, yes, let's go. Let's fucking go. And that created a great swing, and we ended up having a lot of wins come forward after that, hired way more, I think 12 more people at the time. We went bold. And, one of the ideas on how we accept the mindset of potentially failing, let's call it, or going bankrupt, is two things. Number one, Mid Day Squares doesn't define me or my partners. It's part of the chapter. It's a part of a chapter of our life, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. It's a privilege to be on it, but we're okay if it fails. And I mean this in a way that we're not hoping that it does. But if it closes, we know that we're giving 150% every day. We are willing to die on this hill for it. And knowing that, any outcome is okay. And what I mean by that, whether it's $1 billion business or a crash, and obviously I'd rather the billion, no matter, no-brainer. Yeah. But accepting like death of that, it actually gives you freedom to want to achieve more, believe it or not. It's this weird thing. And the second thing is I believe we're all irrelevant in life. And I say this not in a cynical way, in a good way. And I say this by, imagine 1850s or 1870s. That's almost like 150 years ago, let's call it. It's not even that long, maybe early 1900s. Do we really know, can you name me 20, 30, 40 figures that were prolific figures at the time? They're very successful. I don't even know. That's not that long ago, 100 years, let's call it.
Yeah, it's 2 generations ago.
Yeah, you only know maybe 10 names, 5 names of the really big ones that made real things. But everyone else that did great things or did horrible things, you don't really hear about them. So what makes me realize is that eventually we're all gone, and it's just going to move forward. The world will go ahead. Mm-hmm. And knowing that, all you have right now is your present and where your feet are. So where we are right now in our conversation is actually that's relevant to me at the moment. Even if I have all kinds of shit falling apart in my facility, all that stuff, right now is everything. And once you figure that out, it's freedom, and you feel this freedom again. And that's what it is. And it takes you away from complaining. It takes you away from worrying and all that shit. And at the end of the day, I know whatever we do, it might be relevant for a bit. It might not. But I'm okay with whatever happens as an outcome.
In regards to that time period, it's so true that you just said that, and actually put weight off my shoulders thinking about it with what you just said, because it is true. Sometimes you put this such an obnoxious amount of pressure on your shoulders being a leader, because you care so much, fucking much, all day, every day. I think about it. During those times, how did you was there any tool? What tools did you use? How did you handle that on a personal level with the pressure and the stress? Because in front of your team, you have to be optimistic.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go. And I'm assuming you had those sleepless nights. Yep. There's times I've had in my past, and
it's horrible.
It's those nights are the worst.
Great. I had a burnout last year that was too much pressure. I put way too much pressure.
What is a burnout?
So my burnout was I actually couldn't move. I physically injured myself playing hockey, and that physical injury made me question my identity, because I wasn't able to, at the time, travel, walk, be the performer, the dancer. I'm the cheerleader hype guy, Yeah. I couldn't be that because my back was killing, and my hip. And I then started to have a mental crisis, saying well, if I'm not that, then who am I? Who is Jake? How useless am I? And I went down this very downward, deep spiral of negativity, where I started to avoid seeing people. I started to be rude to people I care about. I started to not care about Mid Day Squares at all, meaning we were doing well as a business, but I didn't want to even hear about celebrations or wins. I didn't care. I just want to sleep in bed. And I never thought it would end, and I felt this lethargia, or this lack of energy, inspiration, and motivation, and I didn't care about anything. The word care came in, I didn't care, and I realized something was wrong, so I basically took a 30-something plus day sabbatical off work, and I went to therapy every day, and I did a ton of physio, a ton of working on my injuries and stuff like that, and I ended up realizing that I lost track of who I was. I lost my purpose. My purpose was, I was following this path that didn't make sense to me. I was trying to chase like attention, not in the way that we were talking about before, but
in a different way. Yeah.
Awards, TV, media, and that's all I cared about. I didn't care about why we really started Mid Day Squares, and it made me feel really bad. And then it tightened my body, it stiffened it up, and the injury really caused like physical pain as well. And I was just like, I'm done with this, and I didn't care about anything. And I worked back to it. It took like almost a couple months actually to just get back to normal to a certain extent. And now I'm like 95% back. But I know how real it is. And, I always tell people, be very careful, because burnouts, there are signs. Your body can only go for so long. It will give you warning signs like an engine does when the oil's up or when you have low gas. It's the same thing. It will give you warnings, and then it will just collapse. And we're not unstoppable. As much belief as you want in the delusion, that's great, and that's very powerful. But it's also going to stop if you don't recharge it, heal it, and give it its wellness that it needs to function. And I wasn't. I was abusing it. And yeah, it took me out for, a month plus, but it could take you out for 10 years, 20 years. It could make you literally you could lose all your motivation that you have. And I've seen countless amount of people go through it, and sometimes lasts just for a day. But you got to be careful when you have these signs. And now I have these signs, and I go to ton of therapy for this stuff. But it's real, and don't screw with it, because you never know how it's going to actually affect you, and it's a real thing. And athletes go through it, artists go through it, entrepreneurs go through it, and people in careers go through it because they put a lot of pressure on themselves, and then they forget to recharge. They forget to actually take a step back, because you should always recharge like a car. You got to charge your Tesla if you have a Tesla. It's got to charge, and then you can go back at it. If you don't charge it, it's going to go dead. And same thing with the human body. And if you don't, you'll really fuck yourself up. And I never want to go through that again.
What tools did you use to get out of that?
Hypnosis, hypnotherapy, which is really cool. They work on the subconscious. So like you basically get hypnotized. So you sit, and there's no medical advice to anybody, but you sit. I would go to this therapist, and I had basically when I had the burnout, I had all these OCDs that came, and this health anxiety that I never had before in my life. Everything I thought it was happening to me, I thought I would die. It was the craziest, weirdest thing in my life. So I had no control of my brain. It was psycho. And I literally would burn myself like a touch of hot water, and I think I had third-degree burn. Like my brain was going through a weird thing, and it all had to do with this burnout. It all came together. So the hypnosis worked on my subconscious to actually reprogram my brain. It sounds crazy. I didn't believe this, but I went to one session, went to a second session, went to a third session. Next thing you know, I started to notice my OCDs were coming down, and my health anxiety was really lowered in volume. So now I try to go once a month now. But the idea is you fall asleep to hypnosis, and it's a hypnotherapist that they're trained, and they work on things that are triggering your brain, so then where things are firing in the wrong direction. And it's worked for so many people that I've spoken to. And, I made a post once, and I guess people are embarrassed. I said they go there. People are like, oh my God, I go to him. And I was like, how many? This was like so many people. And now it makes sense. I can only get an appointment once a month. But, I did that. I did tons of regular therapy, which I go with my partners all the time. And I also just start to focus on wellness. I was taking saunas, I was actually sleeping, nutrition, all these basic things that we, exercise that actually are relevant to you as a human, me as a human. I just started to take and make it a priority, and it helped a lot. And then not traveling every week, 5 days a week, and eating dog shit all the time, drinking, all these things, they eventually compound into something that's dangerous. So I've changed my life. And listen, I'm not perfect, but at the end of the day, at least I have my tools. I know when my burnout's coming or when something like that's arriving. I feel it, and I'll take a week off. And I know that not everyone could do that in life, but again, this is the career path I chose, and a big part of it was to sacrifice a lot to have these opportunities to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Because you're taking 1 week off, but the next week you're putting 80, 90, 100 hours.
Nailed it.
So I get it. Absolutely, you're allowed to do that, and I feel like sometimes you almost rationalize it to yourself by taking a day off as an entrepreneur. Because you're like, do I deserve taking this day off?
Yeah, well, you have that.
Is it okay
thing
to golf?
Yeah.
Is it okay to hang out with just my family on a Tuesday?
You feel bad, and then you feel bad.
You have this weird guilt.
That caused me to have the thing. It was like the burnout.
I get it, man.
It was.
I'm sorry that you had to go through that, because I had I burnt out as well, and I got into a depressed state to the point I was avoiding my stores. I was avoiding people because we weren't hitting the numbers that I thought we'd be hitting, and I was also embarrassed. I was almost like subconsciously thinking that people knew what I was going through. So every time they were asking me, I thought they were pitying me.
Yeah, pitying. You didn't want that.
I didn't want that.
You avoided it.
So I avoided it. I thought like, oh, how is this thing doing? How is this doing?
And
I'm like,
your personality.
Yeah. And then what got me out of it, because you mentioned it, was momentum. Yeah. And for me, how I got out of it was creating and being like, all right, what's this new thing? And hyper focus on like this new thing in action. Be like, all right, let me put this goal out in front of me and let me try and build momentum, even if it doesn't fucking make money. It was momentum for the emotional component
in human nature.
And that's what fucking helped me, dude. And I'm getting goosebumps now. It fucking got me as a, you know what I mean? I'm chubby, but I'm husky, baby. I'm flexing, ready to go.
Yeah, it must
you know
be
what I mean?
Goods you had.
Yeah, dog.
But you know what it is?
It's the momentum.
Momentum. People don't talk enough about it, or they do in a weird way for some reason. They like it's almost like a.
It can be positive, negative.
It flips both ways. Momentum force goes negative. That's why when I went to my burnout, I went negative momentum. I was pitying myself. I stayed in bed. I didn't want to get out. And I thought that was great. But when you get action, it's like, when you're feeling depressive state and you just go on a treadmill, you go run, after you're done that thing, you feel energy again. You feel alive. It's action actually creates that momentum. And momentum, you don't need big wins, just small little things that create compound. Eventually, you can compound. I used to study math. The limit goes to infinity. It goes like this. It's exponential. Compounding is exponential, and momentum is exponential. And I think that people forget that. And you can create your own momentum very easily.
And I think what's key, too, is with the momentum is also energy. If you're an entrepreneur or whatever you're working on, every single day, if there's certain tasks that I'm given that are taking energy away from me, I now know what tasks make sense for me, and I delegate those out and get rid of all the tasks that take away energy from me. And people, dude.
Oh, people cut.
It's huge.
You got to cut people.
You got pessimistic people. People are only doing is complaining about their day-to-day or
negative.
Or saying must be nice. The must be nice people are the worst, dude. Yeah, must be nice.
But it's
the worst.
I
hate the must be nice.
I even try to empathize with these people because it's like, listen, if you're saying that comment, what's wrong? What's wrong? Tell me. Let me see if I could have a conversation with you. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm far. I've had all those episodes that you talked about, and trust me, some people's lives are way more stable, and might be better off, to be honest with you. Yeah. But one thing I can tell you is that I'm willing to have a hard conversation and maybe help you out because I've been through a lot that isn't great, and I've been in that boots of saying, must be nice. I used to be that person. I was jealous. I was like envious and jealous in a bad way because I didn't have it. I was doing inaction, actually. I was not action-based, and I was basically saying to myself, that person wins this award, that person has everything going for them, and it can't be really that big. It has to be pretty small, or they paid for that. I always say these weird comments. Yeah. And I hated myself, man. I fucking hated myself. And 5.5 years of therapy actually helped get me out of that thought process and realize that I'm cheering you on. I'm cheering anyone. I'm championing anyone that's a good person, but anyone that's actually taking risks.
Yes.
Whether it's in their careers and they're leaping careers, or they're moving up, or whatever, they're trying to be bold. Those people deserve spotlights, or the people that start businesses, or the artists that go out there. I watched a Nickelback documentary recently. They came from like a little town in Canada, like tiny 2,000 person town, had basically every odd stacked against them. And they would perform in front of 5 people, and they still gave it 150% because they said they never know who's in the room. You never know. And the truth is, you never know. And again, champion these people that are doing that. They're putting themselves out there, even people making fun of them. And that's why I love entrepreneurship, is because you can explore things that a lot of people will have never known about or seen or tried, or it's like the impossible in quotations. That gives me like momentum to know that we can do it, or that we actually tried to do it. And I don't know, that's it. So like, I think that, like you said, like momentum is one of humans' greatest forces.
And off of that too, you gravitate towards people that are just super passionate, bro. That's what
care
it is.
And passion.
Like at first I thought I was vain of being like, oh, well, this person's doing this for their job. This person, I don't really care. If you are a police officer and you love being a police officer,
you're killing it.
Hell yeah, dude. Fuck yeah.
I want you around you.
Yeah, exactly.
And
if you're a teacher, if you are, a chef, if you're a mixologist, barista, I know I'm sticking food and beverage with that, but if you're passionate about it, I don't care how much you're making per hour.
Who cares?
It's all about passion, dude.
Yeah, I have one of my best friends. His name's Daniel Grelnick. He's a lawyer out in Canada, and I have so much respect for him. He's not the biggest risk taker, but I've watched him from day one of his life, early on, dream of being a lawyer. and the type of lawyer that he is. And he did everything in his power throughout. The odds weren't stacked for him. He made everything happen over like 10, 15 year span. Hustled like a dog. And I watched, and I actually admire him. And, you know, for him, he's moving up in his career. And I spotlight that he cares and is passionate to dedicate to that. And he's not necessarily doing the, you know, he's not an NHL player. He's not that. He's not doing
on some stage, but he's on his own personal stage.
He's on a stage, and he's killing it.
Yes.
And it fires me up. And when I'm around him, I feel the energy. And we argue about stupidity, but at the end of the day, we both know that we're in what we call the arena. And the arena is people that are just, they're doing what they want. They're doing it at 150%, and they care and love and have passion for what they're doing. And like you said, the police officer, the firefighter, anybody, the plumber, the chocolatier, the private plane operator, whatever it is, if they love what they do and they're giving 150% and care and love to it, I want to be around you 24/7, because that's what inspires me as a person, personally, to want to go out and win the world.
And that's happiness and success.
100%.
I love the lingo you've built within your brand. I don't know if it's a Canadian thing / MDS, but I feel like it's a Canadian thing with the lingo, bro. Like Chief Rainmaker, Milk Run, how you talk about energy, and the other thing that you do with the
Allez, frappe-moi, dis-moi, woo!
That
means hit me hard, baby.
Yeah, I love
in
that.
French, because we're from French, a place that's French, you know. So, but you're right. Lingo,
what does all that mean? All the lingo you guys are using.
Honestly, and then we have another term called warehouse. We say and we call everyone babe. I call you babe.
Yes.
I call everyone babe.
Yeah.
My mom babe. She calls me babe. It's hilarious. And the lingo is just, again, it's just authenticity, man. Like, you know, like when we call this, when I say I'm warehoused, it means that I feel lethargic and I'm out of it. I'm zonked, and like, imagine working in a warehouse, no air conditioning, heat in Nevada. Like, that's what warehousing means, you know? Like, you'd be exhausted after 10 minutes, sweating, you know, going crazy. And like, when I say the allez, frappe-moi, dis-moi, it's just like, that's authentic to who I am. I look like a crazy person, but people always, Americans especially, always say, what the hell are you saying? It's the funniest thing. And again, it creates me as a different character, other people, you know? And again, like, when you have a lingo, it's community. You said community before. It's like, you know, my community says that's stupidity, right? They say those things, and it's like we all can relate to it, right? And hopefully the milk run can become something more popular over time. And milk run just means, you know, in the good old days, they used to deliver milk to people's homes, and they would go house to house and deliver it. And it was like a very cool thing. Like the milk person, the milkman, milkwoman would come, meet you at your house, get to know you, have a conversation with you. You knew them personally. They would be like a friend. And that's what I do. I get in the milk cart, and I travel around the world to meet people, to have conversations, to deliver them their milk, make them happy, and make them feel something. So I do these milk runs, and they're a hustle. And I feel that energy, and it's become a thing. I even make clothing with it called Milk Run, and people wear it.
I love it, dude.
I'll get you something.
Hell yeah, bro! I'd love to rock that. It's like a carton with legs. How about the Chief Rainmaker?
Yeah, so that took a time. So basically, when I started the company with my sister and brother-in-law, my first role was CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and I only chose that because I thought that since you own a company, you have to have a chief role or something, or like a C-level role. And I was horrible. I was a horrible CMO. I was a horrible manager. I was a horrible operator. And people were quitting as they were working for me. And my ego just told me I had to do that. And it wasn't that I wasn't playing my strength. I was playing to my weakness, actually. Management was a weakness of mine. And finally, I realized after like 8 months of therapy, like that, I got to step back from this role. I got to be managed. I'm better when I'm managed as a person. And I stepped down from CMO, and I became, what I call just a relationship builder. And then I heard someone say Rainmaker once about like legal firms and like banks have these people that aren't bankers or lawyers, and all they do is build relationships. They're like basically biz dev, and they bring the clients to the firms, and they get paid a shit ton of fucking money. So I said to myself, well, that's what I'm kind of doing. I'm kind of making friends with people and then bringing them to the organization, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's finance, media. They're all just coming, so I'm helping make friends for Mid Day Squares, and that's what it was. It was a Rainmaker. I make it ring for the company. And I was like, people love that name. They're like, this is a weird name for a food company. And I'm like, yeah.
I love it, dude.
It gives me character.
Fuck yeah. Chief Rainmaker sounds so much more badass than CMO to me.
CMO is boring. I respect CMOs, but Rainmaker sounds a lot more fun.
Yeah, dude. And in regards to networking and raising capital, what advice do you have for brands looking to get investment capital?
Build out loud. Tell your story. You're always one story away from the person that you care about seeing it. Internet has given you the right to, basically be seen everywhere. So our strategy originally was, when we raised money, was just tell the story online, and people would now know who we were. So when I reached out, they're like, oh, you're that company, I've seen you guys, it's a warm introduction rather than a cold introduction or a cold reach out or a warm reach out. So I always tell people, build out loud. You don't have to show everything, but get people to know you, because people don't just want transactions anymore. They do want some sort of relatability and trust before they even invest in you as a human. And people a lot of time bet on humans, not just on the P&L and all that stuff. So it's your advantage to tell your story. And I always tell people, the only thing that's different between you and I in this room is our DNA, number one, obviously. But number two is the experiences we've had as individuals in the world. You know, we've had millions of different experiences. And if we don't share that story, then we're actually the same thing. We could put the same clothes on. We could drink the same water bottles. We could do anything the same. But I can't live your stories. I don't know how you can make people feel. And you can't make people feel the way I make people feel, because that's what's different about us. So why are we as individuals or businesses not sharing that? And that's kind of what I would say to any company is, get up there, share your story, build out loud, let people see who you guys are. Who cares if you say your revenue numbers out loud? What's the worst case? Your competitor says, oh, they're doing a little less than us, or they're doing a little bit more. We got to get on. That's their game. You're focused on your own game. You don't need them. And I always tell people, building out loud is something critical, especially on LinkedIn or Twitter or X, whatever. You're going to go on there, share your story. I promise you, investors will see your stuff.
When you look back, when you guys first started, what would you have done differently in regards to raising capital?
Raising capital,
So I think it's a very daunting, intimidating component to certain people.
I think we do that side of our business really right. I think one thing that we would have done slightly differently is we would have been better hirers. We've been through a lot of turnover in our company, and turnover hurts the company a lot. Hires team is everything. If you don't have a good team, I know I said product market fit before in storytelling, but team is the other one. If you don't have the team, it's going to be really hard to win. And we just didn't do well on that at the beginning. And we've learned our lessons from that on how to hire, just how to find talent, how to encourage talent to want to come to us to work, and processes, strict systems in place. The bureaucracy actually that is meaningful you need. Yeah. So we put that in place, and it actually made a huge difference to find talent and keep talent. Because without the talent that your team's like, your company's almost nothing.
Yeah,
it's just it won't make it. You need that to actually go somewhere. So I think we would do better at that, and we've learned a huge lesson throughout that process.
Well, what are the certain parts of that to find, like anything specific?
I think just, again, process in place and not rushing things, and actually doing a full process to find the team member and letting the time happen, and then an onboarding, a proper onboarding. We didn't do proper onboarding over in the past.
Just let them figure it out.
Oh yeah, startup life, figure it out. Everything's burning, just come in. And that instability can affect someone very much, and I understand, I empathize with it. And it could be very anxiety driven, it could be fearful, there could be all these things. So we've actually changed that, have proper onboarding. We're not perfect yet.
Yeah, of course.
But we're getting there. We're learning every day. We put people in place that can actually help us with that. We have third-party services now. So just taking that really seriously, and not just on the go, on the whim, because if you make wrong hires, many times over, it could close the business.
Yeah, it's costly.
It's costly. So we were probably one or two hires away from not making Mid Day Squares happen. Mm-hmm. So we've changed that process. It takes longer, but we have found great talent, and our team currently is phenomenal.
How do you go about finding talent?
So we have headhunters, obviously, that go out, but we also recruiters and headhunters. But we again, our storytelling helps. Being out there a lot. And people reach out. They're like, I want to come. And then we post jobs. We use our personal brands and all that stuff to get out there more. And then building a proper network. So we have a great network of investors, even that aren't invested in Mid Day Squares. That again, building out loud, meeting people, going on milk runs, actually going to meet people in person. You build that intimacy where friends become friends. They actually want to help you. So they have massive networks of people. When you tell them and you're friends with them, they want to help you, even if they're not involved in your business. That's been a huge success for us, is having these people that aren't involved in Mid Day Squares actually just help us with introductions and looking out for us. And I think that that's where the beauty of humanization of relationships is critical. And whether it's a fund, think about it, these funds and these people spend their days optimizing that for their portfolio brands. And if they hear of, let's say you need a salesperson, they know a perfect salesperson in refrigeration, because we're refrigeration, they're like, oh, Mid Day Squares is actually perfect. We didn't use you for this company, but reach out to Mid Day Squares, connect us. Mm-hmm. That's been a huge success as well. And then, like I said, I think during the process, being very vulnerable and transparent is a great way to hire the right talent. Because you don't want to make even if someone looks good on paper and has the amazing stuff, but then doesn't fit your culture, you're fucked.
Yeah. Big time. And then in regards to the investment capital side of things, what were your first steps in finding capital? Did you go after private equity first? Did you go after friends and family? Like, how did you go about all that?
My brother-in-law he's my partner. He had a successful outcome in a previous business. So his money came from him and my sister. They're married. They put their money from that business in. I had a fitness company that I started when I was 20, outdoor boot camps that made a good amount of cash that I actually invested into a great stock called CN Railway, and it actually did very well, and I used all that capital to put in. So that when we started, we put that money in. It was just us. And then, we raised about $4.1 million from our government in Quebec, which they have a program called Investissement Quebec.
Wow.
It's debt, but it's very inexpensive debt. And the idea is it's to stimulate the economy locally, create jobs and infrastructure. So we got that. And the last part is our first venture money came from Boulder Food Group. And basically, because we were so loud on social media, we weren't even selling in the U.S. at the time. Boulder Food Group was like, this company's crazy wild. We want to meet you guys. And they actually sent us a huge box to our small little office of all their portfolio brands, their snacks and beverages. And they wrote a letter saying, we want to meet you guys. And they saw us on social media. They saw the hype. They saw the product. They thought it was a great idea. And they came to meet us. We had a great, spent a full day together. We got to know each other. And then we went to them to see them and meet their team. And then it was just there was a deep relationship there. And then, we went over the P&L and all that jazz and diligence. And we got, I think it was $2.5 million at the time from them. Early on, we were doing maybe under $1 million of revenue. Mm-hmm. So they took a chance. And then we continued to build out loud throughout our time. And that attracted a lot of investors to want to be part of our journey. So when the time was when we had to raise more money, we had relationships built because of these milk runs, because I was traveling, meeting these people, but they were seeing us online first and then willing to meet in person, build the relationships over a 1.5 year span, see them twice, 3 times a year. Then when time's right, they were ready to actually invest, not just from a standpoint of, you're a random company, but we know you really well. We trust you. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's rock. So we've actually been able to secure amazing investors that way. And I think we've raised $17 million to date, and then 4.1 from our government.
Good for you, man. And storytelling it shows on so many different levels. Just within us, this conversation, we're not even talking. It's not just about gaining customers. It's also not on top of that, but the community. It's your team, potential investors,
media, everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
We've gotten written in the media.
You get taken more seriously too, man. Yeah. But for someone who follows your story and knows what you're doing, you're going to be taken more seriously.
Less unknown, right? Yes. And at the end of the day, for some reason, humans seem to be they should be actually very protective on who they hang out with, who they follow, who they watch. Mm-hmm. And when you're out there, people get a taste of what it is before, right? So they're like, oh, do I like this or not? And then, when people see consistency and authenticity through your storytelling, eventually they're like, even if they made fun, I dance a lot, and they're like, this guy's dancing, it's stupid. But eventually they see it a lot, and they're like, this guy actually believes, he truly embraces that. Yeah. Then they respect it, and I always see it. It's like, first I didn't take you seriously, I didn't even want to know it, and then I kept on seeing you, and I was like, shit, it actually is authentic. And that's why I would say authenticity strikes through. It's very powerful. And right away when someone's being inauthentic or not, and you don't want to be around people that are inauthentic. Like when you go to a room and someone's acting different for the different friend groups that they're with, you eventually say, I don't want to be with this person because that's a weird thing to do. But when someone's truly themselves, no matter what the situation is, you just want to be around that energy.
What's been your wildest or most memorable investor experience?
The first time we went back to Boulder Food Group, so when they came to us, then we came to them and we came to meet the rest of their team. So they're some of their founders and stuff like that. I'll never forget the first time we met some of them. They was in their office, and I brought a boombox. And I said to my partners before we walk into this room, it was a boardroom. It was probably 3 times the size of this room, but it was a typical investors boardroom. Yeah, but in Boulder. And I said to them, let me walk in first. I'm going to put on this weird ass song.
And what song was it? Do you remember?
Some Moroccan song. It was like Iowa. It was like it was wild. I just heard it at a wedding once, and I was like, I got to play this song. And I said to my partners, they're introverted, I'm extrovert. I said, guys, just follow my lead. They're like, you sure? And think about, we need the money, right? So it was the first time they were really getting to know us deep. And I walked in and I just put it down and I started swearing and yelling and I started dancing to the song. I was like, Iowa, Iowa. And I started yelling and my partners were cringe, dancing in the background because they trust each other, right? You stay in the pocket with your partners, so you got to stay strong, even though they felt really uncomfortable. And then they all started laughing and it started the meeting off with such a high emotion, such a good vibe. And in the end, it was memorable. I think I have a video clip of it. It was honestly hilarious. I was wearing jean shorts, I think, as tight as nails. My muscles were out. And I think it made me realize that, it made them realize who we are and like, this is authentically who we are and we'll do crazy shit and you either like us or you don't for it. And they were laughing hysterically. And it then started the meeting off with just, it wasn't about transaction at that point. It was just like, this is now human to human.
Dude, that's a talk about a high reward situation. And he got the money. Can you imagine if it was like, what the fuck is that? Yeah, that must have been an unbelievable thing.
We needed the capital. Fuck, we were heroes.
That should be your theme song, dude.
And it was American investors to Canadian company. It was so cool because now we do 70% of our business in the U.S. We love the U.S. But they took a chance on us when no one was willing, actually, which is kind of cool. And like, again, I respect people that take chances too, and they took risks on that. And I always tell people, be yourself, because eventually people are going to identify who you are over time. And the skeletons will come out, and the good, the bad, the ugly always does over time. So why couldn't they see my whack fucking crazy side that I was going to do in other meetings and crazy shit and lose some customers from it or not? But shout out to Dayton Miller, Tom Spears, and that whole crew there. They took a chance on us. I think Elizabeth Earle was in the room, and Ben Fenn. Anyway, all these guys, and they were great. And they've been with us, and they've followed along on investments, and they've been with us since 2019.
How important is having strategic partners versus silent partners?
So we have a mix of both. So we have...
because sometimes too many people in the kitchen, it's annoying. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
I think the best way you can strategize this, and what Mid Day Squares did right, is honest conversation, transparent conversation, what we want from you and what you expect from us. And once you get on that agreement before the capital is exchanged, there's a reality and a balance, right? And one thing that Mid Day Squares did right, is as we raised money, we actually gave a little bit more equity during it. But we actually we wanted to keep control of the company. So we control our board. We have 4 of the 7 seats of our board, and we have 80% of the vote, but we have way less equity. So we chose that people came on to give us their voting shares, but we'll give it more equity. So that way that we can continue to make decisions the way we want to, because in the end, if we really believe a large outcome is going to come, it don't make a difference, a 3, 4, 5% equity change for you being able to get that percentage.
You rather control. You rather have half of a watermelon than a grape.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, man, like the whole journey is about like also enjoying, right? I know it sounds crazy, but like if we were being bossed around, I don't know if we would stay on the journey, right? I don't think it makes sense anymore, because Mid Day Squares was, again, I told you at the beginning of this interview, is we wanted to build our own path. And sometimes when you build your own path, there's resistance, and there's a lot of blockades, red tape, and some people would always be scared to do that red tape, and they would say, don't do it, turn the other way. And I'll give you a great example is, in year 2 of our business, we shared a story called 14 Days Later, No Divorce. And it was my sister and brother-in-law, they're co-CEOs together, and I love them both very much. But in year 2, they almost got divorced, because being a co-CEO together and then being married, the intimacy, it was tough. It's fucking hard.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine.
So we filmed everything, like the therapy sessions. I sat there, it was really uncomfortable. But because I couldn't choose sides. I love my sister, love him, but like But
talk about intimacy.
That was real intimate. But we filmed the comeback story of how they actually worked on it and came back together and worked on deep communication, deep activities. And we shared the video. And at first, when the video went up, one of these investors, it wasn't Boulder Food Group, but an investor of ours wrote an email saying, hey, that video doesn't really have anything to do with selling chocolate. It's a bit uncomfortable because it was fairly vulnerable. And do you mind taking it down? And I waited 24 hours, and then I sent him an email, very polite, because I respect him tremendously. And I said, hey, dude, here's a PDF of all the responses we got from our community. And it was all like, this is why we love you guys. Your authenticity strikes through. This is what we love to see in businesses. We hope you guys get together. How can we help? Like, it was just like community love, friendship from our customers who are buying our products. And he wrote back, holy shit, you're not selling to customers, you're building friendships or something. And I was like, someone quoted that line. And he's like, I love it. Keep doing it. He's like, I was so wrong. And like, that's the truth. If you didn't have control of the company, things would change. You wouldn't be able to put that stuff maybe necessarily.
For sure.
But this is in our identity, in our DNA of the company. Mid Day Squares, that's who we are. We share the good, the bad, the ugly, and sometimes it makes people feel uncomfortable. And if you lose control of your company, sometimes people have to, because they go through horrible situations. But if you don't have to, don't be so greedy on your equity. You'll be great. You'll have a lot more fun throughout the journey controlling your organization, if you guys are the right people for the organization, obviously. Yeah. But it's allowed us to be us, and I think that's worth more than the extra percentage that we would have, because money's just money at that point. Your happiness and your experiences are probably more important.
And being able to be a decision maker.
And I'm a capitalist. I like capitalism, obviously.
Fuck yeah, dude.
But fuck, exactly. But at the end of the day, what I realized after burning out and all that jazz and being depressed.
You want to enjoy the day to day. You want to enjoy the journey of being able to build something greater than yourself.
I don't want to be miserable every
and
day.
being with like your sister and your brother-in-law and all the amazing people on your team
and
doing
enjoying
what you
the
want to
time
do
with them, right? Because you never know when your time's up and my time's up. We could drop dead like that, right? And good or bad. But
how electric was and doing all of that too? But I couldn't even imagine how electric that was on dealing with those investors and the highs and the lows, and you being authentically showing all of that is amazing, dude.
Oh, it's good and bad.
Yeah, dude. But on the good side, how amazing was when Kim Kardashian mentioned Mid Day Squares?
Yeah.
What was that, and what was your initial reaction? Was that planned? Was it not planned?
No idea. Big fan of Kim. And we've had a lot of individuals, promote, post about us and things like that, and we had no idea. And she's a rock star. We're big fans of Kim K. I think that, if you look at her story of how she built her brand, she's a storyteller. She's built an amazing company now, Skims. Skims isn't just a good product. It's embracing who she is, in my opinion, and it's huge. They're one of the most successful in what they do. So just a big fan of hers, and some people aren't, which I don't understand why.
Yeah, respect her. I mean, a lover or hater, you got to respect her.
Yeah, she's a superstar. And there's a lot of other cool people out there too. And I always say to people, at the end of the day, unexpected things will happen throughout your journey, and just brace for the ride. Have fun with it.
Yeah. Did it make any positive impact in your business?
For sure. Yeah, people are fired up.
Was there, besides her, are there any other people or brands you would love to collaborate with?
Love to work with her one day. She's super cool. We don't know her, so she's super awesome. But yeah, there's just all these figures. The problem is that the world is so. I always say to people, when people get faces of companies that come in, whether it's a celebrity or a non-celebrity, and you never know what can happen with them. They're going to be authentically themselves, and their life will take them where they want. And if your product's tied to that, there's always a risk, right? And that's why we built Mid Day Squares tied to the three of us to a certain extent. And now we're actually stepping back slightly and making it about Mid Day Squares representing something other than the three of us, but we were able to control the narrative, right? Because, the three of us don't get involved in political stuff. We don't get involved in all that jazz. We're we show the good, the bad, the ugly of building our business. So in the end, us building out loud and telling our story and being the faces, there was no real risk. Maybe you didn't like me, my glasses on during the indoors. Mm-hmm. Who cares? That's not really a big thing. But sometimes when you're tied to a certain individual, whatever they do, their big actions can create a really big downfall if you're reliant on that. And I always said to myself, if we're average people, just build a story about us, and then we're just relatable. We're very relatable. And for us, there's many celebrities we'd love to do some work with, or influencers or brands, but. I don't know, Nike's a cool one, I guess, that I think their brand's a great storytelling brand. We'd like to do something cool with them. But yeah, there's my partners and I all have different opinions on things. So, from a standpoint of going hard in on something, we're very cautious.
Rightfully so.
And yeah, why not? At the end of the day, there's countless nightmare stories. And we don't want to rely on others to promote the brand,
Have you ever had a marketing campaign that just flopped that you learned from?
Oh yeah, we had some videos that we put a lot of money behind and a lot of campaign and just didn't do well. And there's some that have been very successful that we put no money into. And
isn't it just crazy?
It's crazy. I think the one thing we noticed is, again, as long as it's a great story and it's authentic to who we are, we're happy with whatever the outcome is. Mm-hmm. And we've had videos go to 20 million views or whatever it is, and has done so for our brand. Then we've had videos that do 50,000 views and been the most incredible thing in the world. And I think that if we're just true to the story and we like the story and we enjoy it and it's authentic to us, then we're winning no matter what happens to the outcome of that. So, yeah, we've had tons of flops, man. Every day sometimes there's a flop and then there's also a win. So it just, again, our core value is being right more than we are wrong. And so far we've been right more than we are wrong. So I'm grateful for that.
Hell yeah, bro. And you and your founders come across as massive risk takers.
Yeah,
bold, right? What's the biggest risk you've taken that paid off with the brand?
I think, this is a great story. So, last summer, we had an issue with the Canadian government. Government's pretty powerful, right? I don't have an issue with them as a government. Certain policies I don't agree with, but
I love you.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah. And maybe I'll go into politics one day. When I'm really far from Mid Day Squares, but I'll never forget last summer, or I think it was last summer. 2023 summer, Mid Day Squares was told from the Canadian government to recall a product of ours, cookie dough, which is one of our better sellers, and it was a $2-point-something million recall, and it was more than just the dollar value. It was the brand reputation. It was the danger. They claimed that we had a cross-contamination, which is very dangerous. And as a business, first and foremost is the safety of your consumers, and especially being in a food business is your responsibility, and to have really good manufacturing processes, et cetera. And we do. And we pride on that, to be honest with you. And they claimed that there was a cross-contamination, and we really didn't believe it. And not didn't believe them, but we really believed in our product quality, that there was no certain contamination. It was a specific nut that was in our facility. We didn't believe it. And they gave us a really short day period. I understand why, but they gave us a short day period because they got to protect the consumer, but to do our own testing. And we did our own testing. And it actually originally came back that there was cross-contamination. We did the same testing that they used, the same test methods that the government used. And they said it's either going to be voluntary or involuntary. And involuntary means they get the health minister to do it itself, to actually force a recall, which is all over the place. And involuntary is when you just do it yourself. And it's still out there, but you pull all the products for the safety of the consumer. And we said to them, we really don't believe, and we're going to do one last test, find the last test. And if it comes back if it comes back positive, we will recall every product immediately. We have a game plan for it. So we put forward a game plan right away. We got this testing called a DNA PCR test. So basically, it is the only test that can actually decipher between two different nuts, because we have already nuts in our product, but didn't put pistachio nuts on our packaging. But they said there was pistachio nuts in the actual product. And, their test, again, respectfully so, came back that there was positivity cross-contamination. But that test doesn't actually identify the separate proteins that are in the nuts. And we have cashews in our product, and cashews are the very similar proteins to a pistachio nut. And we checked all our suppliers, everyone, no one ever had a pistachio in their facility. So we did this last test on the last minute. It was we had 1 day left or something, or 2 days left. And it came back that it was negative on zero. Only one school had the test, an academic facility, because it's a very expensive test. And it came back zero, and we sent the results to them, and they said, thank you. And the recall just didn't happen. So So a lot of the time, people will just, if the government comes knocking, just do what they say. And we had so much conviction and belief, true belief in that there was no nuts, because we really believe in our good manufacturing, because at the end of the day, if there was, we would be the first people to take it off right away, because safety of the consumer is the priority. But we really believed, and we were right. And there was none. It was zero. It was just that the cashew was reacting to the test, saying that it was a pistachio. And they said thank you, and the recall didn't happen.
That saved a massive amount of money recall.
Massive money, massive amount of safety to the consumer, and then also just the brand reputation. And then, that hurts a business. It hurts a startup that. And again, you never want anyone to be in danger with your product, right? Yeah. And we'd be the first to pull the product if that is. But, it did also make us even more vigilant on good manufacturing process and quality assurance. We've implemented even 10x more stuff since. So it's kind of like a blessing to go through, but it's very scary, because when you have the government knocking, it's their jurisdiction, right?
Yeah, it's a real deal.
And they can shut down the business. And every right, they actually have every right to do if it's endangering their population. And I totally agree. But it was a bold moment, and we made a video about it. I'll send you the videos you could put in the thing. But we basically shared the story of how it all happened, a week or 2 week span. It's crazy.
It's sick that you documented that whole process too, dude.
How exactly? And by the way, when we shared the story, we were scared to share it at first, but then people coming out saying this is bold. You guys it shows your creativity and your care, again, for the consumer, but also when you have conviction, and you really believe it, you can't just take everything for what it is. You have to sometimes question things, right? And that's what we did, and it was fucking scary, man.
I bet, dude. But
I thought the business was done. I actually thought that when I actually did think that Mid Day Squares was coming to its end, because you don't want to. Recalls are very, sometimes they happen for the sake of happening, but you never want to put someone in danger. It's very scary. I'm allergic to nuts and peanuts. Actually, I got good results today that I might not be allergic anymore, but
nice, dude.
Literally today. I was fired up this morning, but I know how serious it is, right? I'm very careful, so I can empathize how
you live it. You
want to trust all your food companies that produce products, and you want to trust the agencies that are enforcing those things. So, but sometimes they're wrong, right? And whether it's 1%, 2% time, whatever it is, you got to be able to have open dialogue as well.
When you could look back to when you first started, if you could talk to that Jake, when you first founded the company, what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give him?
The biggest piece of advice is block out the noise. Like, Jake originally just wanted to prove to everyone that we could build this business. You know, I was always laughed at early on because I was not smart academically, and my friends are brilliant, and I respect them so much. But I always didn't do well in school. I was a class clown. I was kind of dumb. I've learned disabilities. I was marked as dumb, but I wasn't dumb. And I wanted to prove to everyone, hey, look what I could do. That's all it was. It was like, I could do this. I could be on the cover of a magazine. I could be on TV. I could be on stages. And look at me. And it carried a lot of weight, that, man. It carried a lot of pressure internally and probably caused my burnout, to be honest with you. But I realized that that's irrelevant, man. What's relevant is that I'm enjoying this process, that we're building something special, and I'm staying true to the purpose of why we actually started this, because that actually gives you real energy, real life, real momentum. And I let go of that. And yes, I have a little bit of it still left, but it's no longer about proving whatever. It's not the external validation. It's no longer that. Yes, there's always a little bit of that, but in the end, it's like, what intrinsically motivates me? And stay true to that. And I learned a lot over the 5.5, 6 years of business. But I would tell myself, it's not about the other people. It's about you. And I think it would have helped me a lot throughout my journey. But I'm also grateful that I went through the burnout, the depressive state and the burnout due to a lot of that. So, yeah.
Well, Jake, honestly, man, I've been a fan from afar. I've been watching your journey. I've been enamored by your storytelling with your sister and your brother-in-law. So I've been a fan, and honestly, man, I consider you a friend now, and it's really cool to hear your story. I'm motivated. I'm inspired. And I appreciate you coming here, man, and I'm excited to see your journey continuing, dude, because you're only scratching the surface, bro. You're a trailblazer, dude. I mean that, man. I
fucking love it, man. Your energy's great, bro. Like, I know we never met in person. Like, this is the first time, but like, I feel it. I know we've been communicating, and it's just cool to be around cool people that are doing cool shit. And I wish we could build more of a community. I know we talk about community, but of people doing cool shit, whether it's in your career or you started a business or you're an artist, it doesn't make a difference. I just want to be around that energy all the time, and sometimes I miss that where I'm from. There's not too much of that. So I'm trying to get more of that in my life. So
I mean, that's why you're doing these milk runs, dude. That's why we're doing fucking this, dude.
Honestly, you feel alive, man.
As long as I'm break even, dude. I'm winning, bro.
Yeah,
with this,
you're winning, but this is
and
great.
I just do
and you build relationships, man.
It's amazing.
You build friendships. Friendships go a long way. Like, you know, you never know what that person will help you open another door for, or an introduction, or a team member that you get. You know. So I'm grateful that that I'm here in Hoboken, New Jersey, and with you, and I'm grateful that we're friends now.
Fuck yeah, bro.
Appreciate you, bro. Baby.
My guy. Appreciate
Let's go. Let's rock, baby. And the coffee's fucking good.
My guy. Appreciate you, bro.
Not just saying that,